turn on your light first, no matter what else you're going to do. Anything. I'm definitely not a people pleaser. I don't think that's anything that anybody could ever accuse me of. I am literally the goddamn poster boy. I'm a former tournament fighting martial arts martial artist who now instructs in self-defense. I'm over 6 foot, white, middle class, south and east of England. I am everything.
Well, welcome to the second episode of the Anti-Professional Podcast. I am here with Up4TheChallenge, who I have been introduced to through Twitter, and we're going to be getting into neurodiversity, professionalism, all kinds of stuff today. But to introduce Up4TheChallenge, I'm going to share a poem that I wrote 5 minutes ago, as is now officially tradition, since this is my second time doing it. Okay, so here's what I have for you, Up4TheChallenge. It goes... Up for the challenge, downfalls and dead ends, get up and go again, old foes and new friends. I don't know you yet, but I'm willing to bet that if we randomly met in person, we could talk for some time about the lack of reason or rhyme and who wins and who doesn't, corruption and merit, lies, cash and spirit. Does fortune favor the bold or the ones who do what they're told? Let's test this hypothesis and see what time and breath captures in this digital interface. And that's what I have for you. So yeah, welcome.
Thank you for the poem. I write poems occasionally in my spare time, so it's I appreciate the fact that you did this like a few minutes ago, because fuck for my process. But yeah. I mean, I'm Up for the Challenge. It's basically what everyone knows me as, or Up or Challenge. It's always interesting to try and find who called me what, because I originally started on Twitch, and well, I didn't. I mean, technically, I started on YouTube, but like, I got a name on Twitch. I've left it now, but it was always interesting you could tell where someone had found me through by whether they called me Up or whether they called me Challenge. So I'd be like, yeah, you must come from Wabber. You must come from Mindset by Dave. You guys are from like gaming, right? Okay. So it's always interesting how people like talk to me, but yeah.
Great how they show up. Well, then that brings me to the first question I have to ask you. Who are you and what do you stand for?
Okay, so yeah, I'm Up for the Challenge. I just got myself. I used to be a mental health streamer, facilitator, and educator. Now I've left streaming because Twitch don't seem to know what they're doing. So I'm a mental health facilitator and educator. I'm also the chair of a mental health charity here in the UK. I do videos on YouTube, on TikTok, and on Instagram about mental health, both short form and long form, both educational, basically, what is psychoanalysis? No. And also going into more editorial stuff as well, just as a more discussion or about me. I did one recently about obsessive compulsive disorder and how it's affected me in my life. As well as actually I did one recently which was just a poem. So yeah, I do things like that. I also have a mental health podcast where I have people from just everywhere on, everyone from military to social media stars like Call Me Chris, and kind of everything in between, and my mother as well. Yeah, I mean that's me. And as for what I stand for is, it's a kind of a hard question. I think for getting people that have mental health issues, that are neurodivergent, that are just downtrodden simply because they are them, and trying to get them a voice. I always had the thing when I, stood for student politics and things like that. I almost always used the same idea, which was, you may be quiet, I'm not. So if you need somebody to shout, I'll do it. Yes, I would rather you guys are doing it because, hey, I am the fucking personification of toxic masculinity and privilege. I am literally the goddamn poster boy. I'm a former tournament fighting martial arts martial artist who now instructs in self-defense. I'm over 6 foot, white, middle class, south and east of England. I am everything to not be the voice for you. But if no one else is going to do it, let me give it a try, because I can talk to these people, but I'm not as nice to them as the people they're used to talking to.
I like that. I appreciate the concept of like being aware of the privilege you have and saying, well, I'm going to use this as like a conduit for people who might not feel comfortable using their voice, but they can give me what they need to have said and I will say it.
Yeah, I mean, I do my best. I've had backlash from people just, which you do anyway, especially when I was at university, which is like, okay, fine. But you don't have to like me, interact with me. as long as there are more people thinking that I'm helping them than there are disliking it, I'm going to go with that. And that's the point. And I do suffer from mental health issues, and I am neurodivergent, so it's not like I'm just completely some kind of freaking white knight.
Mhm.
But I am also trying to talk when other people can't, especially because I have a background in politics as well, so I can get into the room where they are and then have a go at them.
Right, and maybe even speak their language.
Very much so. I have actually made this point about my charity, is that despite what many may think, because they always see my goddamn face, with my charity, I've said, like, until we're a year, 2 years in, I'm not coming to the forefront. When I do, I will be speaking the language of the politicians because that's my background,
Mhm.
and then I will really go at them. At the moment, I'm being quiet, so it's so other people can talk. But yeah, that is very much the case that I can speak that language, so I'll use it. I actually had a thing on Twitch a while ago during the World Cup, the football World Cup. It was interesting because basically my local MP had a go at a black football player, basically telling him he should stay out of politics
Mm.
and instead be focusing on football because he missed a penalty. Basically, his being in politics was him basically saying that we shouldn't let kids starve during lockdown, and that we should keep school meals in place. And she literally used the lines, "Stay in your lane." And I think my open invite and kind of response to her was, me and you went to the same university. I did politics, you did law. Stay out of my
Mm.
lane. So
I like that. No, yeah, it's good. I think it's good to ruffle the feathers, especially when you can get into those rooms. I think that's why I've enjoyed, entering sort of the sales and marketing and business coaching space as a person who doesn't look like a business coach, because they still let me in the room because I have the credentials, but I'm there to sort of like shake the whole thing up, like what we're doing right now.
yeah, I spent a decade in sales. It's always fun.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot that needs to be worked on in that space, which is why I'm here today. So I'm curious, hearing your background and where you are now. What was the shift for you going from like being you said like a martial artist and a person in politics to now being like a mental health advocate and content creator? Like how did that happen?
So it's weird because I talk about this a lot, and I have the line that my friends kind of know irritates me, but they do it in a loving way. I kind of let them off. I've always had this thing of people going, "Well, what don't you do?" And I'm like,
Mm.
because it's my neurodivergence, and it actually feels almost insulting when people say that. But I'm still a martial artist. I'm still a self-defense instructor. Lockdown kind of got in the goddamn way of that. But I flew out to Hungary and Austria 3 months ago to finish a couple's level 1 in self-defense. Like, I'm still doing it. And I'm still writing books. I actually had one of my, I was talking to my illustrator today about my children's book that I'm writing because I got bored. It's not the kind of book I usually write, but I thought, you know what, fuck it. So I don't think about it as kind of changing lanes, which I think is what a lot of people think about it. I am still a politician. I still at some point intend to run for parliament, and that will be fun. I don't tend to put things down. I think this is what a lot of my friends, because I haven't got ADHD or anything like that. So I know a lot of my friends who have ADHD will pick something up and then put it down and then come back to it later. I'm like, no, pick it up, keep it up. So talking about content creation, for instance, I have 10 YouTube channels, which all actively post. And I'm actually thinking about starting an 11th. And most of them post up to, if you include shorts, then 10 to 14 times a week. Some of them only post once every fortnight or once every month. They're things like, meditations and stuff. They don't need to be that often because who needs a new meditation every goddamn day? But I still do that because I don't find it difficult. I don't find it something that's hard, but it kind of flows. I mean, the big switch, although it wasn't a switch in terms of my absolute focus, was probably during lockdown. So I lost my wife just before lockdown in November 2019, and when it came into early 2020, I was going back to work. I was working at a university at the time, and I'd had some time off, and then I went back and I was like, I don't want to fucking do this. And then lockdown hit, and it was like, right, now you've got to work from home, and I'm like, that would be the home that my wife just died in. Okay. No, off.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I quit. And then I planned out my own death. For August, that in August, for kind of October, around that time, I was like, yeah, that I'm done. I'm done. I was in lockdown. I couldn't leave. I was stuck in a house in which my wife had died in. And I was done. And it was then, I don't know. I think it was actually Comic Storian on YouTube, really randomly. I was watching, and they had this thing of like, oh, if you want to watch our stuff sooner, go onto Twitch. And I just needed voices. I absolutely hate silence, can't stand
Hmm.
silence. And so I was on YouTube and something all the time. And so I was just randomly went on Twitch to watch them. And then when I was on Twitch, again, just because I needed voices, I randomly came across, as I always put it, 5 channels that made me smile at a time that I couldn't. And only one of those channels still remains. And so I started to interact. And then having my dog at the time with me, and, friends outside of that, and just little things all piecing together, meant that
Hmm.
the day that I'd planned out came and went. Not intentionally, not planned out, not me thinking about it. It just suddenly wasn't that day anymore. And
Hmm.
one of them said, one of the channels just said, "Why don't you start streaming?" And I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
Hmm.
I'm an elder millennial. I can barely turn the fucking computer on. And then they were like, no, come on. So I went, I turned the camera on the next day on an old Dell Inspiron 1700
Oh,
series.
wow.
Yeah. And used that camera, used that mic. Didn't have all these kind of lights and mic and camera. Yeah. And I did that, and I streamed for 2 hours ranting about the film Rain Man, about how bad it was, how bad it was on misinformation,
Huh?
everything. And I got 3 people, which was the minimum, continually watching me. And in that first stream, one of them just went, "Hey, man, that was great." I was like, "Wasn't I was just ranting?" And they just went, "No, no, you talked for 2 hours. It's amazing." I was like, "Yeah, like, yeah, but you don't understand, like." Because there was especially at the time, there was a lot more gaming. They were like,
Mhm.
"People don't talk. People can't talk for that long." I'm like, so basically, the fact that I never shut the up is the reason that I'm going to be able to do this. And they're like, "Yeah, okay." And then very quickly, I connected to another Twitch streamer who was like, just told his entire community to come and follow me. And I ended up becoming a streamer in 7 days, which is the fastest. Sorry, an affiliate in 7 days, which is the fastest you can be an
Well,
affiliate.
yeah.
And I carried on, and I actually streamed from the Dell laptop for an entire year of my 2 years in streaming.
Wow.
But I quickly built up steam, and yeah, I started to connect, and my connections, my interactions, my reach as Up for the Challenge in the mental health sphere seemed to go far beyond my numbers, and my general thing. My influence surpassed what it would assume. I was getting on random podcasts and things, because I think for a lot of people, I was everything that they expected someone in the mental health sphere to look like and to sound like,
Hmm.
but nothing in my delivery. I
Ah,
looked the kind of soft southern. I wear the Buddha necklace, and that kind of, I have my teaching diploma in meditation and mindfulness and all that kind of crap. Um, and then trolls would come into my stream, and I'd be like, no. And I think that was one of the biggest things for me, is because I always had this thing with safe spaces. I don't necessarily the idea of, not the idea of it, but the way, the terminology. And I had a
mhm.
lot of other streams I was coming across where they'd say, "Oh, we have a safe space. You're safe in here." And then trolls would come in, and they would freak out, and the entire community would freak out. I'm like, "Well, it's not safe then, is it?" Whereas
Mhm. Right.
trolls would come into my stream, and that happened at first, and then my community started going, "Oh, this will be funny. Wait until Up sees you. Wait until..." And my mods were told, "Do not ban them. Wait until I deal with them, because I'm not gonna be nice. I'm not gonna be. I'm not that person that's gonna go, 'Oh no, 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 motherfucker, come into my house.'"
Mhm.
Like, I don't care what you say about me. You're fucking with my community, and that's not gonna happen. And so my community did feel safe, and so
Mhm.
that, along with everything else, just built up into this. Oh, so I guess I'm a mental health guy now, because it just started to, it pieced together when people felt comfortable being there, and when I seemed to interact with people, and all that just kind of culminated into me suddenly going, I guess I should call myself a mental health facilitator and streamer and educator. You know, I should do that now. And then I kind of went back to YouTube, started a new channel, dealing directly with mental health. My podcast, which I'd actually started as a as a thing for university a society at university. It was basically just so we could talk to each other when we weren't in the university. I went, okay, well let's do something with that, and then that started to get bigger, and yeah, it just kind of came from there. It was very much kind of accidental. It kind of comes from the fact that it's a weird one. I became a mental health facilitator and all this kind of stuff because I wanted to kill myself and didn't, which is a kind of a weird way round, I guess.
I mean, that's how I became a songwriter. I wrote songs to capture the feeling of intense sadness and kind of take the power away. And then it started affecting people when they heard the songs. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I should start sharing these. So yeah, very similar, where it's almost like as a survival function, I started doing something and then it turns out that it helped people, which I think is fascinating, you know, like, and, you know, I had a good conversation with a friend the other day who asked me if I wished that things had gone differently for me. Like if I hadn't been, you know, through a traumatic backstory, or if I hadn't had these, you know, multiple conditions that make it challenging to exist. And I expressed that the empathy that I've developed from feeling that intense suffering as part of what fuels my work. And I'm grateful to have that perspective and that drive, because if it was more abstract to me, I don't know if I would care so much. But I've lived it, you know, I've really walked in those shoes. And so when I hear someone who's in that place, I want to support them and help them. Because I don't want anybody to leave early. Personally, I mean, I understand why people do. And I think, you know, personal choice is part of being alive. But one of the most recent poems I wrote was 33 Reasons I Decided Not to Delete Myself. And it was all the tiny, tiny reasons that I ever walked back from suicide. And including like waiting for the third season of Rick and Morty, just because I just wanted to see, and it was a pretty good season. But you know, it's the little things; those can be good, you know, for keeping us around. And I think it's cool that that's a space you're working in.
Yeah, I mean, I always say that, you know, there were so many things that saved me. Those 5 Twitch channels weren't it, but if any one of them had not been streaming that day, I wouldn't be here.
Right.
So I think it is interesting when you start to go, yeah, you know, 1,000 things saved me, but if there'd only been 999, I'd be gone. So it is interesting when we look at that. It's very strange. I mean, I always kind of go with the idea that I think helping others is far more about me helping myself. I have the line that you know, turn on your light first. No matter what else you're going to do, anything, I'm definitely not a people pleaser. I don't think that's anything that anybody could ever accuse me of. I'm very much kind of help me first, and in that will help you. Because if I do nothing but trying to help you, do nothing but trying to please you, at some point my light's going to go out, and then so does yours, because I'm no longer there to help you turn it on. So It has to be that mine goes on first, full stop. And so I think a lot of my helping does come from me going, well, right now, I guess I want to be here. That doesn't mean that. I think the thing that always surprises people as well is that I'm never okay. And I've never suggested I am okay. And I wake up every single morning pissed off that I'm alive. But that doesn't mean I'm suicidal. And I think especially for people that aren't neurodivergent, that don't suffer from depression, all that kind of stuff, supposedly the normal people, but I think they're fucking weird.
I've met one or two.
Yeah, strange people. You know, for them, they don't understand it, but it's like, no, just because I'm annoyed I'm here doesn't mean I'm necessarily thinking about ending it. So
yeah, you're just sort of like acknowledging the fact that it's uncomfortable. And I think that's, for me, acknowledging the discomfort is part of what makes it bearable to stay. Rather than if I'm pretending that there's no discomfort, that's when I start to get, I think, worse.
Yes. Yeah. I think I mean, I'm always wearing a mask, and I've had this out with a lot of people online, Twitch streamers that do not like this, but hey guys, I don't care. Everyone's got a mask on. Everyone has got a mask on. And I just don't fucking care what you say. You have, because I mean, half the point of this podcast and everything else is we have our work mask, we have our friends mask, we have our home, because you don't talk to your wife, your husband, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whatever, in the same way you do to your mates at work, because you'll get a slap. You know, you don't talk to your teacher the same way you talk to your friend. You don't talk to your mother the same way you do to your you know, your hookup for the night. You just don't, because you killing yourself, they'll do it. You know, it wouldn't happen. So we are wearing a mask. Whether you want to call it a mask, I think, is more the debate than anything else. But in reality, you're acting differently. You're changing your interactions because you have to, because that's part of life almost. The only difference is with people that are neurodivergent, people that are suffering from mental health conditions, they're a lot fucking thicker. And that's the big one. And it may be that we're wearing 5 masks. We haven't taken the last 4 off, or we've been wearing a mask since we were 9 years old and just went, oh, there's 300 masks on. Well, another one's not going to harm. And I think that's the big difference.
Yeah, I remember when I was introduced to the concept of masking, I was like, oh my God, have I ever taken the mask off? And then I started to notice when I'm alone, the things that I do that are so different than when I'm being witnessed. Like even by people I trust, if I'm being witnessed by anyone, I have such a different experience of being in my body than when I'm completely alone. And I started to notice that. And I realized also when I'm performing, I have like a performance like persona that I actually get energized by putting on, and I like being that. Like I often will talk to my clients about creating like a super self for media, like how Bill Nye has like a super version of himself, that ultra characterization of that aspect of himself that I think can protect us from like our actual fragile selves being chewed up and spit out by the internet. That's also why I tell people to be stupid on purpose, because then if someone calls you stupid, you can say, I know, I did it, it's fun, I'm having fun with it, because I think it's really hard to put yourself on the internet and to have people, troll you or even fall in love with you, whatever it is. It's hard to be, the parasocial relationships that people create with us as creators, but also, just the blind hatred, the negativity, the people who want to tear you down for who knows what reason. It's like a lot. And for neurodivergent people who are trying to move into the content creation or like thought leadership space, I think having almost like self-defense processes for our mental health as we enter that space is really critical. I'm curious, it sounds like you've developed something along the lines of just like, I don't tolerate that shit, like hard boundaries.
Well, I think I'm probably just as much to blame for parasocial relationships the other way sometimes, because I think when you're in the mental health sphere, you become far more connected on wanting to help and seeing someone. So I probably have blurred the lines myself accidentally. But I think in terms of a hard line, my hard line is very different, because I always think when people take a hard line, it's usually right, block, done. I'm like, no. I'm going to make you feel bad about yourself. You. I mean, one of my responses to someone once when they were being horrendous in my chat was, if you want my comeback, go and eat out of your mother's cunt. That was my response, because I'm like, I am not, it's that pathetic thing you see on TikTok all the time. Today is not the day, and I am not the one. Like that might go with other people that Twitch wants to push as their mental health people. That might be the people that you'll come across that just go airy fairy and then don't want to actually interact with your space. They don't want to interact with the shit, and they'll close down. That's not me. I don't fucking care. Like if you're going to come at my community, which is basically what they were doing. I don't, come at me, fine, whatever. You're coming at my community and you're making them uncomfortable. You're making people who are genuinely finding a struggle to keep going and trying to make them feel bad. You've got to deal with me and you, because I'm not that person. I've been suffering mental health issues, or at least knowingly, since the age of 9. I have been homeless twice. I'm a former martial arts tournament fighter. My wife died. I don't care. Like, I do not give a come for it. Like, I've actively on my podcasts and on other people's podcasts told people to come and troll me. I was, come for it. If you want to have a go at someone, do it, because what you're doing is you're telling YouTube that people want to see my content. That's what you're doing. You're telling them that, one of the most watched YouTube videos of all time is also the one that is the most hated, which is from YouTube themselves. It's still interaction. So you, if you want to hate me, you're helping. And that means you're helping other people. So you trying to push other people down is actually helping rise them up. So you keep going for it. Just know that I'm in the way. That's the big difference. Is I've got the kind of zero tolerance, but it's also the kind of, I'm not a shutdown. I'm not a no platform. I'm a no. I want people to see who you are. I want people to know you can't take this. Yes, you can throw it and you go, oh, I'm just a troll. Okay, deal with someone who will go harsher. Deal with someone who does not give a either way. I'm not going to be nice just because you think I'm going to be. I always describe myself as a monkey in a suit. I look the right way, I answer the right questions, and I can soften my voice, I can deepen my voice, I can go into my original accent, which is far posher. I can do all that. But if you're going to come at me like a complete dickhead, deal with that. Because I always go with the idea, and I say this to a lot of people, that I'm an asshole, but I also think everyone else is an asshole. And it's a Die Hard 2 reference that I actually use as a big thing for mental health, which is really weird. But
whatever works.
well, yeah, it's basically there's a line where he says, "Oh, I always thought you were an asshole." He's like, "I am an asshole. I'm just your kind of asshole." And that's my point. Is if you go into it going, "I'm an asshole, you're an asshole," it's just whether we're you're my kind of arsehole, that's how we deal with it. But don't have any qualms about coming into it thinking I'm not going to be an arsehole, because if you're going to slip, you're going to attack people, I will be that arsehole that you're expecting, and you're not going to be able to deal with it, because no matter how harsh you can go, I'm going to go worse, and I don't care. And that's the big difference. So I think it's not necessarily there's a hard line. It's more, to get to them, you've got to go through me and you.
Yeah. And there is that sort of, it's interesting. This came up on the last podcast too. We talked about our experiences with being houseless. Like I've been through so many hard things and decided to be here after that. And if a troll thinks that they can scare me more than what I've already seen in life, it's like, it's laughable to think that they could, but that said, some days it does bother me. I don't have that same strategy that you do, because I want to be, this like Buddhist Zen, do no harm person. But then I end up, not showing up online because I feel like I just got, trashed by 1,000 people. So, I think I need my own practice of like how to sort of move that energy and not let it stick to me.
I suppose you could see it as a Zen process as well. I mean, I have the Buddhist necklace, which is the fun thing, actually, because I had the one that I found really funny, and I just deleted it because I was like, I can be asked. But it was someone that tried to have a go at me for all of the stuff that I'm not, which I found really funny. They were basically going, "Oh, well, you wear that that Buddha necklace, and you've got those certificates in the background, and you're just performative and all that kind of stuff." I'm like, okay, well, this is from Wish. I just like the look of it. I'm not a Buddhist. I just like the look of it. The certificates is because they're nice to look at, and it's kind of in everybody else's. And I went to university. Judging from your spelling, you didn't. Like, there was nothing to have a go at me for. Like the stuff, they were basically going, "You don't look right." Okay, good.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what you're trying to achieve here, but that's not really biting to the soul. I mean, my best insult that I've had, because I used to work the doors, which is a different process in Europe than a lot of places, because there's a lot of tests and stuff like that. But my favorite comeback to me was someone that just went, "You look like a reject from a 90s boy band." And I was there going, "No, I can't tell if you're actually trying to have a go at me here, or whether this is some kind of come on. I mean, hey, whatever you're into, but it's not going to work for me, dude." Like, it's just, you trying to have a go at this isn't going to work. Like, I had someone just have a go at me doing my hair. That was a funny one for me. It's like, "Well, why would I listen to you? God, fucking going grey and putting your hair up." Yeah. Pretty sure George Clooney and all those fuckers still do it as well, but it's just like, I don't know what you're trying to achieve. I don't know. And, it's interesting. I try to see in the words what I can try and pick out. If it's just a plain attack, I kind of go, you're probably just having a bad day. Like, if it's just the kind of, "I don't like the way you look." Okay, they've probably just been told by someone. They've probably just been rejected by someone, or they've had a bad hair day. I don't know. It's probably nothing to do with you. If you've got someone, like I had one, which this amazed me at the time, because I always go with the idea you can't change someone's opinion online, because you just fucking can't. You need a real conversation. You need them to think about it. But I actually had a discussion on toxic masculinity when I was on Twitch, and talking about the problems of toxic masculinity, how it hurts fucking everyone. We had a guy come into chat and basically get defensive, as you kind of expect. And everyone started having a go at him. And I was reading it and going, he's not attacking. He's being defensive. Like, he feels threatened. He's not threatening. Like, let's just talk to him. Because I didn't, like I say, those people that attack, yeah, I'm dealing with you. But he wasn't. He was. It was almost like a puppy that's been, thrown away at a rescue home. They don't want to eat. They don't want to interact with you. They'll try and bite you. And I was like, okay, let's interact with the person. And after half an hour, they literally just turned around in chat and just went, actually, you're right. Like, I don't want to be that person. My dad's made me into this person. I've got a kid. I do not want my son to be this. And I was like, we just changed someone's opinion. What the is going on? And like the chat were like, wait, like, you mean you see the problems? And it was like, yeah, actually, like you've explained it, you've got into it. And I think that things like that sometimes can be the problem, and that's why I'm not a hard line. It's more kind of I interact as an asshole, but like I also try and read it, because it's that kind of, some people have always been on the defensive because they're treated that way. They're always on the defensive because no one takes the time to go, why? So that becomes a problem, because if all we do is continue to go, this, that, and the other, but like I say, everyone's an arsehole. So I don't have this, well, that group is an arsehole, that group is this, that group, these people are this. I'm just like, no, everyone is a arsehole. I'm going to deal with you as you're a piece of shit from the start. Cool. What can we deal with? And for me, that's worked so much better, because I'm always on the trigger to deal with you as the arsehole, but I'm also there kind of going, yeah, but everyone else is, so that's cool. Let's carry on. And that was the one time when I just went, it, actually, like, someone's opinion changed. And he literally said, I do not want my son to be like me. He had kind of concluded the fact that he didn't think he could break the tie for himself. He kind of went, I am that result. I am toxic masculinity, I can't change, but I don't want my son to be that, which is an interesting take. It was just like, it was a weird one of kind of going, I'm fucked, but I can't change. I want the next generation to. So it was an interesting take on it. But yeah, I think my defense mechanism isn't, it does change, but it's still got the same basis. Everyone's an asshole, and if you're going to deal with me on certain things, you, dude. Like, so, yeah.
I actually like that leveling effect of everyone's an asshole, because then there's no like I'm better than you thing necessarily. It's just like, well, you're being a dick, you're in my space, I'm going to be a dick to you, that. And I think that, by not creating, there's no us and them. It's like we're all in this like shit soup together, guy. And like, if you're going to be mean, just leave.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why I dealt with that MP like that, when they were like, you stay in your own lane. I was like, well, you're in mine. That's why I dealt with it like that, because it's like, no. We want to talk about who's in whose house. You're in mine. So yeah.
I actually wanted to ask you. So, did I hear that you have a psychology background?
No, I have politics. I have a So I have a degree in politics. I have a master's degree in political theory and practice of resistance. I'm always surprised I can remember the full title. And then I'm studying for 3 master's degrees and 1 undergraduate degree at the same time at the moment, as well as also doing a part-time diploma in counseling, cognitive behavioral therapy, and also kind of on the side, I'm doing a teaching diploma in yoga instruction as well. Like a proper one, not the over the weekend one, which somebody recently just went, oh yeah, I did one of them over 3 days. I'm like, no, this is a fucking year-long thing. This is an actual one. So I mean, one of those degrees, one of those masters is in global mental health. So there is, so there is it's current. It's not my background. So I've studied in sociology before, and I have studied in psychology before. They've been part of other things. Here in the UK, the way we do it is a degree isn't pick from here, but then have more than one in one module. It's your degree is everything about that subject, and then maybe one module is about something else. So for us, the fact that I've done psychology in other subjects, or in my, in the other masters or in my degree, wouldn't count as having a psychology background. It may do it in the US and things like that, because it's a weird system to us. You might call it, it's a minor in psychology, whereas here it's like, no, your background's politics. So yeah.
Okay, so but coming from, let's say, the mental health perspective or the cognitive behavioral stuff that you're studying right now, where do you feel like the psychology of trolling comes from? I always try to like for whatever my like lens on the world is like, how can I reduce suffering as much as possible? And a lot of the people I spend time with are like that. And so when I interact with people who are like, I'm going to do harm today, I can't rationalize it. And I'm wondering if you have a perspective on what motivates that behavior.
So it's kind of strange because for me it's the other way around. Like the first, I mean, I've had, although there's a very changing scale on how we define things like ASD and ADHD and things like that. But I have had those diagnosed with ASD and things in the past. But that apparently doesn't exist anymore because we changed the way to look at it. Now I still have OCD. We'll go with that, and depression and shit. But for me, the first way I think is the harshest reality, and then my mind immediately reels through the nicer stuff. Like my actual first response is not the nice one. My first response is I want to tell this person. You know, it is weird, because especially when you start to realize shit, that's not what everyone else does. Like I've tried to explain it to people before, and they're like, "What the is the wrong with you?" I'm like, "Is that not how you deal with things?" I'm like, "No." Oh, okay. So yeah, I mean, I think potentially there is some mental health issues of a lot of people that are doing it, that they just haven't figured out a filter yet, that they are just literally there's a developmental issue in they simply don't reel through it, and they don't think of the consequences. Because I don't, you know, if I think of like being harsh immediately, I'm not thinking about like I'm not really thinking that, but that's just what's in my head. And it seems that for some people, because there's no connection, I think online has allowed that. There's no connection. They're just doing it because it doesn't matter for them. And they don't see that it matters because it's not an interaction for them. It's just something online, somebody online. It's not real. It's not a thing. And so I think for some people, there's a developmental problem, that there's a disconnect, that they can't really see it. They don't see the effects. And so it literally doesn't matter. It's almost like, I don't know how much you like superheroes, but it's a bit like with Ghost Rider. So Ghost Rider's penance stare, when he basically destroys the soul of, or destroys the psyche of a person by showing them the fear, the pain, and the horror of everything that they have ever done. And it's a bit like that, in that these people have never seen it. They don't see the horror, they don't see the pain, they don't see the. So I think for some people, if you gave them the penance stare, that troll would disappear, because they'd suddenly go, what the fuck have I been doing? So I think for some people that is part of it, that they are just disconnected completely from it. Other people, I mean, people don't like me for this. Some people are just pieces of shit. You know, and that's the thing. I think we try and forgive some people too much, in that, yes, mental health issues can play into it. This can play into it. That can play into it. But some people are pieces of shit, whether they have a mental health issue or not. You know, I've come across people who have said horrendous things to me, and I'm just like, no, you're just a piece of shit. Like, you know, you can have people try and forgive what you said because you're going through an episode. You're still a piece of shit. You know, that's irrelevant of that. And actually, I think it's almost insulting to use mental health in that way, because to use mental health and say, well, it's because of the mental health, is to say that they don't have a properly functioning ability as a person, because they are only their mental health, and they're nothing else. They don't exist without it. They are not the same idea of cognition as anybody else, because, well, no, they only did it because of this. Yes, but they're still a functioning human being. They still have consciousness. Therefore, it is not just them. So I think it's actually insulting to think of it that way as well. So some people are just pieces of shit. But I do think there's a lot of things that can explain it. I think there is a big disconnect, especially for younger generations now, that have never known a time when they're not online. And then the last one, I think, is kind of, as I said before, is the defense mechanism. I think for a lot of people, and it, you know, let's be honest, it's a lot of previously privileged or currently privileged people that are suddenly seeing their privilege and not wanting to accept it, and they're on the defense, and they don't know how to defend themselves because they've never had to, and so that defense becomes harsher because they don't have a defense. Everyone that's had to defend themselves aren't in the privileged group, and now the privileged group are there defending themselves because it feels like they're being attacked, even though they're not. They're just being shown it. They feel like they're being attacked. And so their defense is, well, I'm going to talk to everybody else badly because they're talking badly about me. It's like, well, that's not directed at you. You're now directing it. And I think that
Mhm.
plays a part as well. Is it's a defense mechanism that's out of control.
Right, and it's almost like I noticed this like with the whole like Trump wave in America, where a lot of women like jumped to defend him for like openly bragging about sexual assault.
Yeah.
And my logic around that was if they held him accountable, they'd have to hold their husbands, their sons, their brothers, their fathers accountable for other bad stuff they did, and they can't accept that those people in their lives might have made mistakes or they might have made mistakes, so they have to get behind this guy.
Well,
And
yeah,
I think that's where some of the psyche is around supporting these very, very toxically masculine individuals.
absolutely. I mean, it wasn't federally the case until 1991 that rape was made illegal within marriage. It didn't exist.
Right.
So, and I mean, that's the 90s. So some of these people that are defending him probably have been sexually assaulted by their husbands, but just went, yes, but it wasn't illegal, and not really seen it as anything else.
Right. Or like
So,
within a religious context or whatever, cultural context, like they have to protect that person.
yeah, yeah, and it
Very, very
becomes very
interesting.
problematic. And so they jump to defense, also because of themselves sometimes, because you know. Misogyny can exist for women too. They can be misogynist. I think
Oh,
we talk about
definitely.
a lot of Trump rallies. Well, a woman can't be there. Shut the
Mhm.
and it's it becomes problematic that way. But yeah, I think defense is definitely it, but I think there's a disconnect for some people, and then like I say, some people are just pieces of shit. Super nanny is not reality.
Mhm.
The the fucking quiet corner does not work for, let's be honest, anyone, let alone,
Mhm.
because if the quiet corner worked, they wouldn't be a problem child.
Mhm.
So, that's the reality. So
Okay. And so just to pivot slightly, just based on what you've told me,
yeah.
I'm curious what your experience has been with the concept of professionalism. Like, was there a point in your life where you wanted to appear professional and then you were like, ah, fuck this? Or have you always been like, nah, I don't think this is really for me?
Yeah, it's weird. Like I remember probably when I was like 10 or 11, I always loved the idea of being in a suit and having a briefcase and traveling
Mhm.
on the tube. That was, that, and it wasn't even a professional thing. It was just they were the successful. That's success. You should be that. And I'm very much a capitalist. I still am a capitalist, but a European capitalist. So actual capitalism, not productivist capitalism, which is a completely different thing that is used to describe capitalism everywhere. Anyway,
Mhm.
um, so yeah, I mean, when I was 10 or 11, that was fine. But yeah, I think very quickly I just went, yeah, no, this is not me. I mean, a hoodie is what I tend to wear in my streams. It's what I wear on my YouTube stuff. As a literal educator, I will talk about, okay, today we're going to talk about intrusive thoughts versus impulsive thoughts. This, and I'll be wearing a hoodie because that's what I wear. Like, why the
Right.
fuck? What? And actually, when I was working in university, the very first thing I did, um, jeans and a jumper. And I don't wear t-shirts and that underneath jumpers usually. And that was me being smart. And that was it. And actually, um, in terms of professionalism, so this is the story I always like because
Mhm.
I loved the response of the office. Um, I was dealing with students. I was a student at the time as well, so I think this is what changed it when I was at university. Working for the university, and one kid was just being, I say kid, I was probably like 2 years older than him, but one guy was just being a pain in the ass. Like he just wasn't listening
Mhm.
to me. So I just turned to his girlfriend and just went, "Can you slap him around the face? Because I'm not allowed to." And the entire office just kind of went, "Oh my God." She laughed and he just went, "Oh, fine, I'll listen." Like, thank you. Right. And that was it. Like, yeah, professionalism. But actually, like, he's not listening to that. You being this, it doesn't listen. Actually, what he wants is someone to just say, shut up a second. So my thing was
Mhm.
just to not talk to him and just to talk to his girlfriend. Just going to go, you deal with him. And that was it. And that kind of stopped it. And the one thing I've always hated, and I will say this for anyone that ever contacts me, and this includes through the charity, although the trustees won't allow me for this one. If you ever address an email, and you haven't done this luckily, if you ever address an email to me with "dear" beforehand, I'm not responding. I'm deleting the thing because
Interesting.
why am I interacting with you there? That is the most patronizing way to start an interaction with me. Most
Ah,
patronizing way. If I think about it this way: if you're a student and you're being addressed as "dear blah 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 blah," well, this isn't something I want to interact with. Why am I being talked to like I owe someone money? What the f- is this?
mhm.
Because that's how they start. You get a letter
Right.
from a debt collector. It starts with "Dear Mister," "Dear Mrs.," "Dear blah blah blah." No, just say
Right.
hi, or whatever you want to say, just say it. Do not start with dear blah 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 blah. That. I hate that, especially in email form. Especially in email form, because an email is not a formal thing as far as I'm concerned. So you're starting it off like that. No, the best lecturers I ever had never addressed it like that. My best lecturer, I think, probably my best, and I always give him a call out, Dr. Ian Mackenzie at University of Kent, probably one of the best ones. I mean, this is he taught me a lot of different things. He was also my dissertation supervisor for my master's in political theory, and he didn't do that. He was like, hey, how you doing? Hey, we need to meet up. Let's grab a coffee and talk about your dissertation. That was the way he talks to me, because I'm over 18, I'm a adult. Because that's the other thing as well. That's why it's so patronizing, because it's talking down to you. Starting with dear is talking down to you. Think about how your grandfather, grandmother, whoever, older generation is talking to you. Oh, hello, dear. Off. No, my name or whatever I'm going by, or call me up. Like, just talk to me like that. Do not
Right, like talk to me like a person.
Yeah, you don't start a conversation with it. You don't start a conversation.
Right.
That's what they're doing. They're starting a conversation with you through an email. It's a type of communication. So why is it starting in a formal manner? No, I don't want that. I don't. It's so weird. So I've always hated that. I've never liked that. Even when I was when I was instructing more, I was the instructor in I was a self-defense instructor for the university I also worked at. And I think people expected a certain thing there. And I always started by going, right, there's a few things you need to know. One, this is a self-defense class, not a martial arts class. We are not traditional here. We do not bow as we come in. None of that shit. And then people would start going, oh, well, they do it like this do it like this. I'm like, I don't care. Like the biggest one was, well, the student union. I'm like, okay, first off, the student union insurance isn't as high as mine. They have a £4 million indemnity, £300 payout per person. Mine is 6 million and 100,000 per person. The reason that I am in charge of this is because the student union do not have instructors as highly qualified as I am. I run this. End of. I don't give a shit what you say. I don't give a shit what you want to do. You do it this way or you off. I am not here to make you feel better. I'm not here to make myself out as being great. In anything, being here reduces my reputation. So no. And you'd get some people that would just leave on the first lesson because they weren't used to being talked to like that. They weren't used to interacting like that. I don't care. I've always very much been like that in a lot of spaces, way before the mental health sphere. And I think I brought it in. I mean, it's really weird, especially being in politics, because politics tries to drive it into you. And no, I didn't do it then either. Like when I started within politics, when I was an elected politician, my favorite one was I turned up to one of the offices and I didn't know where the planning area was to try and sort something out. And I was like, I have no idea. Like I was at the front desk just going, hey, I don't even know. Like I've got my card with me that'll let me in everywhere, but I have no idea how to find them. Can I just ring them from your phone? Like, yeah, okay, right. Guys, can you come and get me? Yes, of course. Yeah, because I was the elected person. Yes, of course. And I just went, I'm in a red hoodie. And they were like, a hoodie? So Jesus, yes, a fucking hoodie. Right? What the? Yeah, a hoodie. And they came and got me from front desk and took me back into the offices. And I also used to just not wear my ID and just walk around the offices. And they'd be like talking normally, and then look at me and be like, "Sorry, who are you?" And then I'd tell them, they'd be like, "Oh, I'm very sorry." I'm like, "No, that's fine." I wouldn't be that person that was a suit at every meeting. That wasn't me, because that's not how we interacted with things. I didn't talk that way in meetings either. I remember calling the leader of one of the groups at one point a twisted Robin Hood because of the way he was interacting with things, and they just didn't fucking like me for that. But I was like, no, I don't care. I'm going to talk to you like people. I'm going to talk to my constituents like people. I will interact with them like that. And they used to get annoyed because I wasn't telling the papers. And I'm like, well, I don't fucking care. Like, are they happy? Cool. You tell the fucking papers. I'm not dealing with that shit. So I've always been that very kind of non-professional professional. Like it's always funny with that, because I'm like, I will talk to you how you need to be talked to. not how you expect it to be done. Because let's be honest, the reason so many businesses, so many educational facilities and everyone are scared about AI is because they know that AI can do professional real easily. Tell
Yes.
AI to tell AI to be us. Tell AI to be human and interact properly. He doesn't have a clue, because that's the point. So if you're a university that's worried about that, you shouldn't be a university. I'm glad AI is taken over. If you're a business where AI can
If you can be replaced by AI, then you're not doing anything interesting.
yeah, well, it's the same line as when people say about, immigrants are taking my job. And it's like, well, if somebody that's been in the country for 2 weeks, doesn't speak the language and doesn't know anybody in the country can take your job, you didn't deserve it in the first place. And it's the same thing with AI. And I think that's the point, is that professional doesn't mean good. Professional doesn't mean respectful. Professional doesn't mean anything other than you have this weird code of conduct. And it's like, not like, the only things code of conduct should do, and the only way a professional workplace should do, is make sure you're not a dick to everyone. Like, right, we're going to deal with making sure that people aren't sexually harassed. We're going to make sure that people talk to each other like human beings. We're going to make sure that no one is making advances. We're going to make sure that nobody's racist, misogynist, misandrist. All of that stuff, that's what we deal with. That's what that is for. It does not say we start every email with dear, we address people with a bow, and we wear a suit to work. That.
Right. Because that doesn't actually matter for the outcome. The outcome does matter if you're punctual, if you communicate well, if you do what you say you will. Like, those are all, I would say, you could take those out of professionalism. And I always say, you can be ethical or you can be competent, but you don't have to be professional.
Yes.
And like, I think unprofessional is very different than anti-professional, because unprofessional, I would say, is like, oh, you don't meet your deadlines, you don't do your job. But anti-professional is where I want to push the envelope forward to, like, how can we sort of break down the parts of professionalism that keep people out, which is part I wanted to talk to you about, like, where neurodivergence plays in, where I have felt very unwelcome in certain workspaces because I was advocating for accessibility for myself and people like myself, and that wasn't welcome. Or even direct communication about things that make me uncomfortable or I don't agree with is, like, unprofessional. People don't want disagreement. But I think a lot of people, myself on the autism spectrum, I always joke that I have, like, an autistic sense of justice. Like, if something is viscerally wrong to me, I have to say something. And I have not found a corporation that appreciates that. So that's why I work for myself. But then I find so many clients who are refreshed by that. And they love that I'm saying what nobody will say. But so many people would tell me, like, oh, you can't get a neck tattoo, you can't dye your hair purple, no one will take you seriously, no one will pay you. It's like, people fucking love that about me. They do. That's the whole reason people work with me, is because they want permission to do that too. And I think people are underestimating how many people are sick of professionalism, because professionalism, I think, is becoming in the minority. And so I'm curious, like, in your mind, what do you think we could build to replace professionalism that is more inclusive for all kinds of individuals who want to participate in, like, a thriving economy?
Yeah, I mean, I've had the same issues. I mean, like I say, the big reason that my ability to talk to people and my kind of name was spread beyond anything else was because I was the antithesis of what the mental health person was meant to be. I wasn't the LA wellness guy. I was I was Mr. Grumpy. I was the grumpy Brit that told you to f off. So that was kind of part of it. But I think, especially, I mean, I've come across that as well. I always come across the idea of, well, you talk in this way and that's not nice, or this is the, I was like, that's not my problem. If something's wrong, I have this issue with people because people get real riled up when it's just like, yeah, but that's not true. Yeah, but that's no. We're not talking about your opinion. Your opinion can be your opinion, but your opinion on a fact is not a fucking thing. So piss off. It's why me and one of my late wife's friends never got on, because I think the first time I met her, she put an opinion forward on something that has a definite fact, and I just went, well, it's just this. Not in a nasty way. Not in a, oh, I'm right. I just went, this. And she hated me from day one. Apparently I was rude. Well, fuck it. Like, this idea that just because we interact in that way is really strange. If something's wrong, then we deal with it. And the problem with professionalism is it doesn't deal with what's wrong. It deals with what's against itself. So this way of doing things is wrong. We will deal with it. If you're on the spectrum, almost definitely you will go, right, this needs to be dealt with now. And, oh, but we can do it. We can do it now. Oh, yes, but it doesn't fit these. I don't give a shit about your standards. this is what we're doing now. And I think that's the biggest problem, is to literally, let's rip up the whole professional bullshit. Because other businesses may not want to deal with you. The clients will. That's all the shit I care about. So I think the biggest thing to try and create a framework for that working is to not create the framework. Is to basically go, right, as I said, is to go, right, don't be sexist, don't be racist, don't be misogynistic, do not have sexual assault things, all that kind of stuff. Basically, be a decent human. Let's have that. Put that on a wall somewhere. Everything else is fine. Because it doesn't matter beyond that. Like, are you turning up for work at time? And you know what? I'm slightly different to you. I don't give a shit what time you turn up for work. Are you doing the work? And this is the point somebody else has made, is, if you're a designer, you're not necessarily paid by the time. You're paid by if it's good. Like, if you were paid by time, you just take longer. Like, no. Are you doing the work? I'll pay you according to your work. You have 50 things to do this month. I don't give a shit if you're in 9 till 5 or from 5 till 10. Is the work done? Yeah, cool. I'm paying you the same. Like, this weird idea, and actually, like, the 4-day week, which is very popular in Northern Europe, has also been tested in England, and was begged for afterwards by all the businesses that took part, because productivity went up. But of course, professionalism tells us we've got to be in on time, we've got to be doing this. Well, actually, no, that's the exact opposite of what every test on it seems to suggest. It's actually that if you're doing the work, that's what matters. Doing the work and having it done is what matters. Being there at a certain day at a certain time doesn't. So if you want to work in the office, cool, you go work in the office. If you want to work from home, cool, work from home. I think everything else in between is up for grabs. I think literally having a framework is the problem in itself. And I don't agree with you in terms of whether someone's turning up for work on time. I don't give a fuck. Unless, turning up for work, if you're a counselor and you're turning up 30 minutes late to see a client, that's not a timekeeping issue. That's a you're not doing your fucking job issue. So that's different. So I think beyond that,
maybe a better way to frame it is that you keep your agreements. So whether that's a time or a place or whatever, like I have a person who meets with me once a week and we go over stuff together for 4 hours. And if they didn't show up, then I wouldn't hire them again. I tried to hire 4 people before this person and none of them could show up. So I did not continue working with those people. But this 5th person does show up and that person gets to keep getting paid. So I think it's more about, that integrity. Do you do what you say you will do? And that's part of the being a decent person thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I don't even in terms of the kind of job you do and the way we work, it shouldn't even be, I don't even think we should have boundaries between jobs. So, because the professional structure also means, like, well, this person can't do this job.
Yes, that's why I can't work in corporations. They want me to do one job.
Yeah, and it's like, well, no, because I can do that because they're on holiday or I can just do it. Okay, the easiest way to think about it is I also do script writing for a YouTube channel. The other day, because I've just started for this new channel, and I was like, right, I know how I'm writing this, and I know in my head how I want it to sound. I'm going to do a couple of lines from mine, do it to my mic, just so they have an idea. Look, this is what I'm envisaging. Because sometimes when you write a script, people read it differently, and then in their head there may be something wrong with your script, even though there's not. It's just that the person's interpreted it. Things like that. It's the reason some people like audiobooks and don't like the book, even though it's the same thing. It's just how someone's envisaged it. And the second they heard it, they just went, wait, can we just pay you more and you do the voiceovers? And I was like, I mean, if you're happy with it. And I just went, look, I'll send you another couple. I'll do the entire script. Let me know. And I actually got the thing today of them going, yeah, we'll move ahead with that. We'll just pay you more at the end of the month. Fine. And that's what, and I think social media really helps it. I mean, I've just started working for these guys. They are paying me because the way you work out how you get paid and contracts in social media, as opposed to professional jobs, is completely different and far more open. Like, it's like, well, I don't like how much you want to pay me. Okay, we'll pay you another 25% on top. Okay, we'll pay you 50% up front before you even done it. Okay, fine. And that's how I did it for this recent one. You can't do that for a professional corporate job. They wouldn't do it. But guess what? That's why I'm working for them guys. And that's why I'm now doing that voiceover. I mean, weirdly, I actually think their old voiceover person was better than me, but whatever they want. But that's their choice, and the fact that they are open to just going, hey, well, we like the way you do that. Can you just do it? Saves them a lot of mucking about. They were probably paying the other person more because they're a professional voiceover person, and that's fine with me because hey, I can just work it through. And if their way of thinking is just going, well, this is better for us. This person gets a bit more money as well. Why don't we just do this? And I think that has to be something you have in all businesses. And I don't like the way that businesses compete, especially in terms of charities. So I had interaction with a charity recently. It was a mental health charity, and I couldn't really do much work for them because there was a conflict of interests because I was a chair of a mental health charity. I'm like, I'm sorry, but if we look at charities, especially mental health charities, as being corporate and we're all going after the same thing, I have an issue because no, none of us are paid. None of this is paid. All of this is like, what are we going after? What are we fighting for? I will simply go, and they really didn't like that when I said, well, hey, I'd suggest they come to you, or you could suggest they come to me. They're like, no, that's even worse. I'm like, why the fuck is that worse? Like, if I find something and go, well, actually, I think these guys really better help you, I'm going to tell them to come to you because that's the point. And I would hope that you did the same because your mental health charity is meant to look after people. And same with any charity, same with any business. The easiest way to think about it, although it is hyperbolic and it is fictional, is think of Miracle on 34th Street. The biggest thing that helped the business get more customers was Santa telling them all to go somewhere else for cheaper prices because of the honesty. I don't know if Miracle on 34th Street in a while, but that was the whole point of the film in there that he goes, and hey, there have been businesses that have done that in the past. And guess what? Their profits went up because they were being honest with people. So
right, it's counterintuitive, but people like the counterintuitive experience. When it all feels like streamlined and boring and like something you've seen a million times before, people just don't care. And in a way, because those things can be procedurally generated, it almost makes you lose credibility. Because you're like, well, this could be generated by any scammer. Like, it's so easy for a scammer to generate something that looks professional these days that you have to have that sort of that edge that makes it clear that you are not only a real human, but you're a real human who is specifically helpful for this situation.
100%. I mean, and I'll go back to education again because that's what I know best. I also was a teacher, and the thing that really gets me, and I think there's just an issue with the American education system in general, but all these calls of like, well, AI, ChatGPT can now pass, a university level paper, and I'm looking at the output of ChatGPT because I played around with it, same as everyone played around, and I just went, if that is passing your classes at a university level, there's something wrong with your university because that would not pass in a year, not even GCSE, so 16, not even that level in the UK. And if it did, I would question the teacher. That is not good work. That just is not good work. It's repetitious. Half the stuff is wrong. It is not that level. It just isn't. It just isn't. AI is not. There are programs that do that, but if you're saying ChatGPT can pass your class, do some work yourself because your kids clearly don't need to. And if we're
right, you're not asking hard enough questions.
Well, it's not even hard enough. There's no creativity. So the biggest dropout rate in the UK for university level is from a school system called grammar school system, which is outdated. It's bullshit. It's based on lies. Everyone out there, come at me. I know I'm right. I can show you the fucking evidence, but it's bullshit. And the basis of it is I can repeat what I was told. They're hard questions, but I can tell you the answer because those hard questions are a certain way. What I want is creativity. And when you look at places like Oxford, Cambridge, Durham, Glasgow, all the bigger universities that are Russell Group, so the equivalent of like Ivy League, when you talk to them, their questions, you can give them the best answer, the top answer to get in, like the entrance exams, and you can be the top. This is the answer. You won't get in. You need to show some creativity. You need to show them why you're different, why you think in a different way, why you're not the same as everybody else trying to do the same goddamn thing. And that's the thing. There should be creativity. So to me, it's not about being a hard question or not. A debate isn't generally won by the person that can answer the hard question. It's the one that can interact with that hard question that can actually give a different perspective. I mean, my dissertation for my degree, for my master's degree, was actually because accidental, because I gave a different answer to the very first question that was that was asked in my master's was, what is resistance? And everyone gave the same answer. Everyone, well, you only go against this when you. And I said submission. I said submission is an act of resistance. From day one, that was it. That was what all my lecturers were like. You are writing that as your dissertation now. That's it. That is. I don't want that as that. No. We haven't had that answer before. That is your dissertation, and
that needs to be explored.
Yeah, and that was. I became that kind of main thing because I didn't have the same answer as everybody else. I could answer the hard question, but the hard question was the same answer to everyone. Whereas I just went, yeah, I'll just go this way. That was the thing.
Something interesting, because I would be boring to write the easy, the simple one that everyone knows. It's interesting to hear you say, about how school systems and education really focus on obedience and repetition, and each person coming out the same. And I think as we're moving into this century, we're seeing that the outliers are really the leaders and the people who get stuff done. And the more homogenous you are, honestly, it feels like the harder it is to get paid, the harder it is to get hired, the harder it is to even find community. But I think there's still so much beaten into us that we're not supposed to stand out. Standing out is bad. Stay below a certain threshold so you don't make anyone uncomfortable. But that's not really good advice for feeling good or being successful in my mind.
No.
Because I don't feel well if I repress myself.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, it's such a weird thing. And of course, when you're neurodivergent, you're already being told you're not fucking right. So that's kind of the problem, is you end up being told, right, you're not right because we need you to fit in with this. And then being told, well, that fitting isn't right. We need you to fit into this. The box just keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's probably why you have such a backlash of breakdowns. And getting even worse now with people that are neurodivergent, because the box is getting smaller, because the old guard are trying to keep hold of the little power they still have. And they go, no, we're going to dig our heels in. It's got to be this way. And that's why we're seeing more businesses being created than ever before. It's why we're seeing more mental health issues than ever before. All of these things are coming along with each other because people are starting to go, fuck this. I am neurodivergent, or even not that. Even if you're one of the lucky ones that is not fucked up in the head. I mean, firstly, how does that feel? It's got to be weird. If you're one of those few, you're still having to do the same thing. You're still having to try and break out that same box because you're being told you're the same as everybody else. And I think that's why we're seeing it more and more and more, because the internet has opened us up to everybody else. Lockdown showed us that our jobs can be done from different places. And so actually that old way of doing things didn't make sense. So many of these things are being shown as being wrong. And it's why it's almost like when you get parents that go, well, I've been through hardship, so my kids should be. You went through shit, so your kids should go through shit as well. That means you're a shit parent. And that seems to be what a generational thing in terms of business as well is. We went through this. We had to fight hard. So should you. No, it's easier now. So I'll do it. There's a weird, especially with education, of when you see a lot of people, especially in the UK, I don't know about in the US, but in the UK, my funniest one is when they go, well, of course they can pass all these exams. They've got the internet nowadays. And I never had the internet back in my day. It's like, no, but you had books. Did you not go to the library? Because I'm guessing you did. So you still had access. So your problem isn't, and you get this kind of, well, they're just not as smart nowadays. No, they just have access to more information than you did. And it's very rarely talked about, because you usually get the idea of, oh, we've given these kids an exam from the 1950s and none of them pass. There is one time that I've seen, one time that has never been repeated and is never talked about. But there is one time they did the opposite. They gave people that were, parents and that did their exams for school in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and gave them a modern exam. None of them had a fucking clue. Nobody passed. At least the other way round, one or two would pass. That way round, no one passed because everything had changed. And you're going to go, well, look, it's different now. It's not the same. It's not that people are stupid. It's not that people are, lazy. It's not none of this. It's that world that you created for things to work in, that professional structure you created things to work in, doesn't exist. And it hasn't existed for years, for generations, but you're still holding on to it. And that's just the problem.
Yeah, and trying to preserve it for what?
Yeah.
Just to maintain relevancy, perhaps?
It's because it's this idea of well, a general thing, nobody likes change type thing. And
Mm-hmm.
because for them, that was what was right. And it's what worked. And so it's why so many businesses go, out of business, because they will not change. They will not change because they're like, no,
They don't adapt.
I've done it this way for years and it's always worked. It's like, cool. But if I have always hammered a nail into the wall the same way for years, and then one day that house is destroyed, I don't keep hammering a nail into the wall because it's no longer there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't suddenly go, well, that wall was always a problem. It's the wall's fault. No, there's no wall there, and that's
right.
what we need to
find a new way
about. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
It's
very interesting. Yeah, it makes me curious. Especially with your moving. You're kind of, to some degree, like an influencer in the mental health space. You're
I hate that term.
A thought leader or something. Whatever you want to call it. Like you're starting conversations. You're building community. Whatever word you use for that. And then you're also moving into politics. You're also moving into, more certifications and more higher education. So are you comfortable sharing like your ambitions with that? Like what is your motivation for getting into those spaces, and why are you studying so hard, all these things? Like what are you doing?
So I actually would call you out on that question, in that I think that question is an old guard question and an old guard way of looking at things, because I get it a lot, especially within education. So why are you doing so many degrees? Because I want to. Because, for instance, and it's weird because it's an old guard question at the same time as being a very younger way of looking at it. Specifically in education, if we look at it, education, when it was started, had nothing to do with a job. It had nothing to do with anything else. It was started because they wanted people to be educated, and they wanted people to know things. But now it started, especially in the 80s and 90s, to move into you get this degree, you get this into a job. I do it because I want to. Hey, I like the idea of that. Cool, I'll do a degree in it. That's why I do it. And I think the problem is that it has become the question of, why do you do this? And why have you? It's like, because I want to. And I think it's a very old guard way of thinking, and it's especially in education and for doing so many things. It's like, well, why are you doing that? What's the benefit? Why does there have to be one? Why do I need? I just do it. Especially neurodivergent, you tend to just going to go, well, I want to do this now, so I'm going to do it. And there's a reason I have 10 YouTube channels. Do I want all of them to be partnered? I don't fucking care. They can be. I don't. Who fucking cares? I'm not the next Mr. Beast. I don't care.
Right. You're not trying to.
If we come down to it, that's arguably the thing for every YouTuber, is to be Mr. Beast. But if we only look at it in those terms, then nobody's ever going to be on YouTube. There will be no new content. But that's the way it gets reduced to, is that, well, then why do it? Because if your thing is, well, I want to be successful, well, then, okay, as who? Because there's realities. And so, I think the question itself is somewhat old guard.
So perhaps to reframe the question, what I'm trying to understand is like, what do you want to build with your life? Like, what excites you in terms of like for myself, I'm trying to build a body of work in all these different ways that like empowers people to start taking up space and to believe in themselves and to get through hard times. And so I'm publishing things, I'm writing things, and that's sort of my mountain, the thing I'm building. And I'm curious if you have something you're chipping away at, like some big dream or project or even just a concept in your mind that excites you.
I think I will quote a Baz Luhrmann song from the 90s. Some 18-year-olds don't know what to do with the rest of their life. Some of the most interesting 40-year-olds still don't. And I find that the thing. If there's something to do, I'll do it. If there's a voice to be made, I'll make the noise. But I don't see why there has to be an outcome. Because I think when you start to have an outcome, that's problematic immediately, especially in the mental health space. Because when there's especially if we look at it in terms of autistic traits, if there's an outcome to hit, then you hit it. What's next? Because then you've hit it. That's the problem. And with OCD as well. So when we start to create those targets become the only thing that we become focused on. And actually, especially in neurodivergence for ADHD, autism, OCD, bipolar, then you can get hyper-focused. Well, in that case, you've no longer allowed yourself to be in any other spaces. So you just allow it to be, well, I'm just doing it. I find that far better. Like I travel a lot. I have one of my channels is a travel channel. And that's purely because I'm like, I'll go to another country tomorrow. And people just go, what the f*** are you doing? I was like, well, it's cheap, so I'm just going to go. Like I was in Poland 2 weeks ago. I went to last year. Was it last year? Somewhere. 2021. No, year before last, kind of. On my birthday, which is early in the year, I went to a meetup. I'd been in the Netherlands beforehand, and I'd just come back. It was my birthday. I was like, it's a Yes Theory meetup. I was like, I'll go to this. There's going to be some drinks. Cool. Went to a random pub in London. There's 80 people there. And I was drinking. I just went, guys, who wants to go away somewhere? And like 2 people. Like, this is I'm going to call out Yes Theory London. You're meant to say yes to things, you fuckers. 2 people said yes. Halfway through that week, the next week, I WhatsApped them and I was like, so where are we going? And they were like, serious? Yeah, why not? And that weekend, literally the weekend straight after, we went off to Greece. And then when we were in Greece, I was like, hey, so how about we don't go back to work? Fuck it. Who wants to go to Hungary? So we flew to Hungary for another few weeks. And then I was like, who fancies getting a tattoo? Should we get yes as a tattoo? And we all got tattooed yes on our ankle. We met another couple of people in Hungary who, on the Yes Theory stuff, that were just like, hey, we're in Hungary. Is anyone around? And I'm like, yeah, you're in Budapest? Cool. Come and find us. They were meant to fly back the next day. And I was like, no, you don't want to do that. Come on, come travel with us. Give up the place. Come stay at our Airbnb. And then they slept on the floor of our Airbnb. I had the main room because, and I persuaded one of them to get a tattoo, the same tattoo, a day later. And then we got a train into Austria, carried on traveling. They all called in sick. And then they carried on to Italy. I flew back to England so that I could go back out to Montenegro the next day. And then I flew off to Jordan in the Middle East. And I just kept going. Because why not? Whereas if my goal had been, I want to travel this year, I want to go to see Petra, then I would have gone to Jordan and that would have been it. Or I went to see the Parthenon, then I would have gone to Athens and that's it. But I met new friends, I met new people, new experiences. I interacted with the people more because I just went, I've got my passport. And I think that's far better. I think I've mentioned this in a recent podcast with someone in Argentina, actually, that I live better in chaos, which I know for a lot of neurodivergents, especially ASD and things, it's just not right. But I like to be different. My brain has prepared itself for chaos. It hasn't prepared itself for every situation, but it's prepared itself for chaos. And so when chaos happens, I thrive in it. And I think that works better for me. When I try and work on other things, when I try and do one thing at once or live in silence, it doesn't work. And I think when we give ourselves these, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I'm boxing myself off. And I don't want to do that. I want to just going to go, I'm going to randomly do a degree in this. Cool, let's go do that. And I think that's more fun. I mean, they're doing the different master's degrees. I was actually doing another master's at one of the universities that I was already at, but because it was the same university, their computer system, because it was not set up for that, wouldn't allow me. And I thought that was very old guard in itself. I was at one point a self-defense instructor and a manager of a perfume store at the same time, which don't go together, because why not? And I think that for me, that works a lot better. This idea, I think when we try and limit ourselves or have a specific, I'm creating this, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, then we loop back round into the idea of a career. And I don't like the idea of a career because careers don't really exist anymore. There can be a space that you want to exist in or spaces that you want to exist in. But some of the most successful people that we see nowadays are the people that don't have that. KSI, for instance, Jake Paul, as much as he's a twat, these are not people that just went, I want to do this. Jake Paul was Disney. He was a Disney actor. Then he was a YouTuber, and now he's a boxer. KSI was a nerdy kid that did gaming on YouTube. Then he did rapping. He's now a rapper. He's even been in films, acting, and a boxer. Like, these are the most successful people, and owns companies for alcohol, owns a takeout joint, and a brand of this that is apparently difficult to get in the UK. But if we just went, well, he's going to have a career. Well, then what's he going to do? He's going to have a career as a YouTuber. Okay, well, then it becomes the stay in your lane thing. And then we loop back to that MP I was talking about, where it's like, well, stay in your lane. You can't do this. No, because that footballer, Marcus Rashford is the one, by the way, who's just like, hey, well, you're a footballer, right? But am I not allowed to do something else? Right. I think that's where it becomes concerning when we start to create those areas and just going to go, well, I want to do this. Well, I want to do everything. It makes the torment of Tantalus, but I want to do everything. And if I keep trying to do that, then I can't succeed, but I'm also never going to be going to be stuck in the boundaries of what everything else would do there for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate you calling that out, especially in these days of like, oh, you got to pick your niche and you got to stick to it and you got to. I think I have been struggling so much with like feeling like I'm two things and I don't know how to merge those things, and I get competing advice of like be your own niche, or like be a multi-hyphenate or whatever. And there's all these conversations, and I think that what you're bringing to the table is very helpful in terms of like you don't have to know or define any of it. Just live your damn life and follow what moves you, and like you'll get where you're going, and it doesn't matter if you were aiming for anything. Like just go live and experience and taste. And I think that that is very, it's not something we hear a lot these days, and I think it's good to bring in.
Yeah, I mean, even if we go into sport and everything else, look at Usain Bolt. Usain Bolt, fastest man to ever live in the 100 meters. 100 meters isn't his sport. 200 meters is. He started doing 100 meters to help him with his 200 meters.
Ah.
So is he a 100-meter athlete, or is he the 200 meters athlete? His niche and career is created around the thing that he didn't want to do. He did it because it helped the other thing. So it's that idea of like, yeah, you can create your niche, but I think the problem when people say create your niche is that to create your niche creates a niche. And if your niche is literally to do everything, then you can't create it. So just do everything. I got told a lot from a friend of mine who's a psychologist years ago, that I am the biggest control freak he's ever met. Because when I get into a conversation, if I don't understand it, I don't just go, okay, I might let that happen on Google later. I go, right, okay, so I'm going to go and do a 3-year degree in that, and I'm going to go and study. I'm also going to take a job up that helps me develop my opinion on that. I don't like the idea of not knowing it. I don't like the idea of being the odd one out. I don't like the idea of being Joey in the conversation from friends. So I just go, well, I'm going to know everything then. And why not? Like, why have this niche? Most one of the most well-known magicians of all time, Penn Jillette. If you ask him what he is, he will tell you he's a juggler. So
I love that. Yeah.
He's also New York best-selling author. He's also the most well-known as a magician. Everything else. I'm also an author. I've got several books. But my first book was on the idea of intelligence and the fact that it doesn't exist. And I've written on other things in mental health. The one that's going to come to market most soon is probably the kids' book, talking about the greatest side.
Right. And if you had said to yourself, well, I only write, nonfiction books for adults, then you would have never let yourself stretch out into like, well, this children's book is, sometimes I talk about it almost like coming through. Like, I don't know why it's in my brain. It's a thing that's got to exist. So I'm just going to realize it because it's the idea that came to me. And so here it is.
Yeah.
And I think we get to have more diversity in each of those spaces by bringing in people with different experiences. Like if only children's books authors could write children's books, I bet they'd be a lot more boring, similar to all the other homogeny we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So being mindful of time, I am curious to ask you, are there any things that you want people to know about that they should search about you? And do you have any like closing thoughts or concepts that you really like feel like you got to get out?
I mean, so the main thing, obviously, my charity, Up4 Mental Health. .org. That's it's a charity here in the UK, but we'll take your money if you're in the US. That's fine. But the idea of it, and something I probably should have mentioned more in the podcast actually, is the charity is basically the same thing. So the idea of one thing helping, like I've got to have talking therapy, I've got to have medication or anything like that. The whole point of the charity is that you create your own therapy. So what we do is we have a mass store online of, and this isn't stuff from YouTube, these are people that have made these videos for us, of everything. And we have, you can go and find your journals and the research on the idea of hobbies being helpful to mental health. I don't like calling them hobbies. I think they are in themselves therapy because they are therapeutic. Therefore, by definition, they are therapy. And so you can find things like how to start swing dancing, how to do break falling in martial arts, a start for your exercise for the morning, or you can do meditations. You can find music that you can find useful on there. How to start a podcast, how chopping wood has been helpful for your ADHD. And you can find, there's about 30 different things on at the moment. We are going to be doing that. I wanted it to be 100 by this point. It hasn't been. I'm pissed off at that. It's going to be more. We started like 8 months ago officially, so it's getting it more on there and just building it more and more and more. And we want it to be that if you go stuff isn't helping me. You know what? D&D, I think that really helps my anxiety. Cool. We want we want a dungeon master or a game master to come on there and do a 5 to 10 minute video for us then to help people get into D&D, because that's therapeutic to them. So it's the idea of the charity is we help you create your therapy. And that doesn't have to be and never should be just one thing. It may be that you're still going to talking therapy. It may be that you are still taking a medication. But on top of that, because that isn't enough for you, or that you still have ups and downs, you get somebody to teach you how to do acting. Whatever it is, we want it to be on there. We're just starting now in April. There's going to be our first in-person kind of sessions. So we're doing martial arts for mental health. And we've got a friend of myself and one of the other trustees is a colleague of ours in the martial arts sphere, who is also happens to be a clinical hypnotherapist. So he's going to be taking people suffering from anxiety specifically for a 6-week project, see how that works. If it works well, we're going to continue it beyond that, but for the moment it's going to be 6 weeks. We're also hoping to get a walking group up in the north of the country, because walking has a good relation according to research on anxiety and depression. And so we're going to look at the area which is Stockport, which has the highest instances in the UK of depression and anxiety, so that makes sense there. So we're going to try and do those things as well. There's a lot more we want to do, but the main thing is that you create your therapy. Therapy is dependent on you, and talking therapy may not be it. The therapy for me is to run and it's martial arts, so punch people. But that's what's helpful. So why not do that? And I think that's the big thing for us, is that I've not seen that from any other mental health charity. So that's us in a nutshell, is we want to help you create your own therapy and what is best for you. So if you want to be able to start a podcast, for instance, there are 3 different people who have different podcasts that are on the charity website right now, and you can go and speak, one of them being me, go and interact with them to see what do they suggest to start your podcast. And we've got journeys as well. We've got one of our trustees that talks about his journey with alcoholism and how what his journey was, how that helped. We've got one of our other trustees talking about her agoraphobia and how swing dance helped her get around things like that, and how to get into dance. So there's so many things on there. So yeah, do go and check that out. And if you're
that was up4mentalhealth.org.
Yeah, up the number 4 mentalhealth.org. And of course, if you do want the traditional stuff, there's also a let's chat. So if you go to resources, there's a let's chat drop down, and go on there and it will give you the numbers of all the other charities and the my OCD and everything else shown. They are categorized in alphabetical order of ADHD, autism, and you can go through of what you may need. There also say crisis lines at the top, and at the very top there's it says worldwide. If you're not in the UK, there's a link for worldwide so that you can find the similar numbers for you personally. We have the same thing on YouTube, so we're in a few different places. The only one that I'm probably going to keep, because I think is the only one that fits, is YouTube, where we have either a meditation or a helpful video, or a lot of the time we have our own podcast on there, which it's not regular. It's like once a month. We try and put up 1 video a month on the channel just to be something. I talk exactly the same on there as I do here, probably worse. So especially in the terms of professionalism, I think in the very first podcast of the current trustees, I actually made the point about 10 minutes in of like, if you're expecting something different, and I was not to swear and for everything like that, no I go with the idea of mental health being the same as with Dangerous Minds, the film from the 90s. For everyone you turn away for swearing, everyone you turn away for not being professional, everyone you turn away for something else, all you've done is kill them in exactly the same way that the film did. So yeah, definitely go and check out the charity. If you want to check out me specifically, then you can of course go to I've got 10 channels, but there's 2 main channels. If you're doing mental health, you can of course go to up the number 4 the challenge MH on YouTube. That is me. That is you'll find me not swearing on that one, because that is that's the one that's suitable for work. Basically, it was so that people could show it to their grandparents and put it in schools. Then I do editorial stuff, which is a bit ranty, and also educational. So you're going to go the what is bit of that. So that's that one. I also have the mental health podcast, which is called the Good to Talk podcast. So Good to Talk, I think, is the at Good to Talk, I think, on there. But you can find it. You'll be able to find me on there somewhere. So it's Good to Talk podcast. And then if you don't want to ever hear from me on mental health, go and do my there's the education channel, which is Up4TheChallenge, and those are 2-minute videos, which would be very helpful, especially I think for people with ADHD, although it's not meant to be mental health. It's 2-minute videos, basically just the basics on a raft of different educational things, from the Roman Empire to the French Revolution to what's boxing, what is Tai Chi, Romeo and Juliet, everything else in 2-minute things, and those go up 6 times a week as well. So there's a lot more other things that people can find me on, because I have a slight weird addiction to social media, but up for something, and it's probably,
they find one, they'll probably find them all.
Probably, yeah. They kind of, if you put up the number 4 into YouTube, I'm there somewhere, or just online generally, I think.
Right. Well, yeah, I'm going to call you Challenge. I'm very, very grateful for you being here today. I love your perspective. I love, I'm just going to chew on a lot of this, especially because I'm realizing that I'm putting myself maybe in more boxes than I need to. And I like how expansive your concepts are around what we do with our life and our work and everything. So yeah, if you have any closing thoughts, I'd love to give you the floor, but otherwise I'm excited to see where this goes.
So I wasn't necessarily going to say anything, but you've just put it there. Again, somebody else's podcast I was on from Argentina, they had never traveled. They really wanted to travel. They wanted to do traveling. They wanted to travel the world. They wanted to be a nomad, but they'd never left their country. I got on a call with them, and my main question to them was next. And the reason was, what's your next excuse? Because I just would take down one excuse and there'd be an immediate another one, because they created that barrier. They created that box. And so they had done, right, well, this is the thing. So every time I would go, right, well, that's wrong. Next. Because I knew there was another excuse, because they'd just created it. Because once you have this boundary, you have this box, you will do all you can to defend it. It's Michel Foucault's Le Gris. You are created from the grid in which society and schooling and everything has created for you. So you'll do everything to maintain your place within it. And because you've created it, it starts to destroy your way of thinking if you move outside of that grid. So next, and that's the biggest thing, to just sit down with yourself about something you want to do but haven't found yourself doing yet, is sit down and just going to go, what's my next excuse? What's the next thing I'm going to come up with? Because I know that I can do that. This person, the first thing is, well, it's money. Okay, well, it's not expensive. And I've done this with people before, and I'll go, right, well, what's also, everyone VPN into UK servers if you're traveling, especially in the US. It's about half the price of what you're paying at the moment. Because I've done this with people and gone, right, oh, well, it's expensive. Okay, what do you want to be paying? Get me on, I'll do it from this place. Okay, well, it's now that price. And what's your next excuse? Oh, but then when I'm there, I can't. Okay, well, like, I've just found you 5 places. They're all this price. What's your next excuse? I can't work from. Okay, well, you've got good internet there. Oh, and that hostel offers it for free and they offer you food. What's your next excuse? And that's the thing, is there's always another excuse, because you've created that boundary. When you run out of excuses, then why aren't you doing it? And I think that's the big thing, is as you're discovering in yourself now from chatting, is that you're creating those barriers. And the easiest way to do it is just to sit down and go, what's my next excuse? What's the next thing I have put in place? And also understand, you put that barrier in place. Nobody else has.
Right.
Yeah. Society's fucked.
It's invented by me.
Society's fucked. Society has fucked us all up. Society continually tries to put us in a box. But the problem is that if there's something you actively want to do, and you are the one that's coming up with the excuses, then that barrier is one that you've added on top of the one you've already been given. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think it's a great closing thought. I hope that it mobilizes some people and gets people moving. I will be sure to include your charity in the show notes. And I'll let you know when the episode goes out. Thanks so much for being here.
No problem. Cheers.
Okie dokie. That was it. Thanks so much for being here. If you enjoyed that episode, please go check out Up4TheChallenge's charities and his YouTube channels, and just go get involved in his world. I'll put all the links in the doobly-doo in the show notes. If you want to work with me, don't forget to go to www.identitypending.com to book a planning call with me. If you want to basically get permission to exist however you want to exist in your business, I am very happy to serve you by giving you permission and giving you resources to save time in your business, because that's what I love to do. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. See you next time.